Yo, dude, what do you think our like actual chances of winning this thing are?
Dude, this is one of our best pieces by far. We're definitely winning this, dude.
Yeah, dude, we got this.
Guys, you're not gonna believe this.
What?
Recently, Monsters We Make, the manga helmed by CoryxKenshin, announced on their social media that they were going to be holding a character design contest called Prepare the Hounds.
The rules were simple: create your own character with their own set of abilities and powerful tech, and you have a chance of getting your character in the story.
Overjoyed with the possibility of getting one of our very own characters published in the Monsters We Make, we decided to try our own hand at it and design one of our very own hounds. And we are excited to tell you that we did not win.
But just because we didn't win doesn't mean that we don't know someone who did. Introducing friend of the channel, Soy Sauce.
Hey.
While we did not win, we did have loads of fun participating in this challenge and are happy to show you all the character we designed for this challenge. And be sure to stick around to the end of the video to hear a word or two from our good friend Soy Sauce over there.
Now let's get right into the video. When we first started this challenge, we had very little knowledge of the power system since the chapter explaining it had not come out yet, so we decided to play it safe and have a character with a grounded ability.
We wanted to make a character that was a social chameleon, someone who could, without fail, fit into any crowd through his ability to perfectly construct a personality fit for any situation. And the way he would use his ability in combat was through creating holographic copies of himself, overwhelming his opponent's senses through pure numbers and confusion as to which was the real one.
But we encountered a problem about halfway through the drawing, when one day the Monsters We Make Instagram posted this picture.
From what little we could gather from this image, we assumed the worst, that this character was capable of creating multiple copies of himself, which ended up not being the case. But just to be on the safe side, we ended up scrapping the idea and started designing a new set of powers that could fit our already finished design.
And what we ended up was this: Silas Lucero, the Mexican Irish trickster.
For his new powers, we ended up delving even further into his chameleon motif and gave him the ability of perfect mimicry. Whether it's sounds, voices, or even mannerisms, he can copy it perfectly. And through his suit, he can take that mimicry to another level. By scanning his environment, he can project an illusion over a small area and be able to blend in, or even disguise himself as another person entirely.
But that's enough talking about Silas's character. Now we move on to the art itself. Starting off with the composition. Now the composition was actually made by Levin. As we were going through the different powers, we were sketching up different ideas to showcase how these powers would work. And the first one was a duplicate. So this was the original composition. Now later down the road this became a problem because we actually ended up switching the powers, but we were so far in that we actually couldn't turn back. Deadlines were due and we just had to work with what we got. Now onto the inspiration and the reference for this drawing. This part was actually super easy because I just had to reread the manga that I already bought. Now going through the chapters, there was actually one scene when they were going down the alleyway which this building stuck out to me because this has a very futuristic and cyberpunk setting. So they usually have these like newspapers or things on the wall, like I guess you could say wanted posters or just posters of companies and different stuff like that. There's always some grittiness, there's always pipes and stuff like that, where there's also these grand like big buildings of New Eden. So that's kind of what I wanted to do here. So I have a grand kind of building that's kind of has that bluish tone that the Monsters We Make backgrounds love to use because it has like a very futuristic bright vibe to it. But then I also contrasted that with this grittier building that I would see in that alleyway scene. So the only hard part about this drawing was actually doing the graffiti because I suck at graffiti. And shout out to Levin because he actually did that part for me. But everything else on this drawing is completely me.
How do you keep your pants up when you're performing? It's incredible.
Belt.
Now onto the rendering. So I wanted to have two light sources for this drawing. I have the bright blue of the New Eden in the background, and as you get down into that grittier spot, it's going to be more of like a red. And I just thought that was a cool concept because, you know, in cyberpunk or futuristic settings, there's usually always like double neon lights, whether that's, you know, you could pick, you know, like yellow and purple or, you know, blue and green or whatnot. So this time I wanted to do blue and red and give it that honest cyberpunk futuristic type of feel. Now, that part honestly was kind of hard because of all the intricate details of the stairs going up to the kind of like this apartment building. But other than that, this part was actually one of my favorites and the most rewarding part of it, because this part of it, I kind of just turned my brain off. I don't know why when it comes to rendering, I don't really have to think much. So this part of the drawing was super fun. And of course, like I explained earlier, I did have some parts with the graffiti. That will be the end of my part of it. Now on to Levin.
When it came to making Silas, Uega and I went through several different designs. We struggled and struggled until we finally settled on his current design here. But as you can see from all of these sketches, we went all over the place. And then we finally decided to settle on this one right here. But as we said before, we changed his abilities halfway through, but already had this design drawn up. So we had to make what we had already work. And that's what ended up turning into this current iteration of Silas Lucero. As you could probably tell, I have no experience when it comes to sci-fi designs, so I drew heavy inspiration from Cyberpunk 2077. Even though it's technically not the same, they're both still in that futuristic setting. And when it came to making his outfit, I've been studying fashion of all different time periods and chose to implement some of the designs that I really like into this piece. I imagined myself making my own custom NPC that could fit into Cyberpunk 2077, and I just went from there. When it came to actually drawing the fit itself, it wasn't too hard, but deciding the colors is what really got me. I went through several different iterations of what his outfit could look like, and what I eventually went with was this digital camo and green look, both playing into his chameleon motif. Now, when it came to rendering the piece, Uega actually did most of the work for me when it came to setting the scene and the tone. So I just followed the color palette and the shadows and all of that, and I just tried my best to make it where these two pieces look like they're part of the same piece. But as you heard earlier, he asked me to add some graffiti, but I have legitimately zero experience when it comes to graffiti. So I went searching and I found this asset collection on the Clip Studio store. I ended up buying it and using it for this piece, but in the future, I plan on learning how to make graffiti myself, so I'm not so reliant on things like this in the future. Now, my favorite part about this piece, it's kind of hard to see, but where he starts to turn invisible, there's a slight warping effect around the background. To be honest, it was quite a bit of work for how minimal of an effect it is, but I feel once you notice it, you start to appreciate it a little bit more. Now, that's enough from me. Let's hear from our good friend Soy Sauce.
Heyo, my name's Soy Sauce, and I draw stuff. And in this particular instance, I drew Aleki. Now, I actually only got into this challenge because of Levin and Uega. I saw Levin working on Silas and asked him what this whole thing was about. It was only because of these two working on their character that I drew my own submission for fun. Now, Aleki is a Samoan hound with powerful mutated jaws that break through almost anything. To make him stand out, I gave him this blocky powerlifter build like Eddie Hall. Everything about his design emphasizes the fact he exists to break up terrain and protect civilians. After the events of the Eternal Night, Aleki grew up trying to survive in the streets with his family. To ensure his survival, Aleki's parents left him the remaining food they had scrounged up and starved to death. Traumatized by this loss and sunken further into the depths of starvation, Aleki wished he could eat anything. In an attempt to halt his stomach grumbling, Aleki ate the ground beneath his feet, and it worked. Aleki found his abilities, and it sustained him. He now vows to protect his team and keep them well-fed on the battlefield. And that's Aleki. His physical appearance was loosely inspired by Hunk from Voltron. I can't honestly source much other inspiration than that, but his backstory is inspired by Sanji. This is to reinforce the themes of his character about eating and supporting others. But yeah, if you want to know more about me, I'm working on a comic series called Undead Neverland, and basically all my social medias is related to that. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, whatever else. And on top of that, follow these guys. They're working on a lot of awesome stuff. I hear there's some one-shots in the works. Keep up with Studio Ivory and check stuff out. They're really cool. Laters!